Welcome to the Pulse, brought to you by the Helen Therapy Centers. I'm Henry Florsham, President and CEO of the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce. We are streaming live on Wednesday, May 13th on Facebook and YouTube, and will be rebroadcast on KJQL Texomashomepage 18 Sunday morning. My guest today is Installation Commander of Sheppard Air Force Base, Colonel Kenyon Bell. Colonel Bell, welcome. Let's jump right in. What's the last six weeks been like for you?
Last 6 weeks, it's been pretty exciting, pretty fast-paced, tiring at times. But, I think that those of us who are in the military or in leadership in general, it's been an awesome opportunity to be able to shepherd people through something that's been very difficult, a difficult time. So much uncertainty. I know for the first probably 2-3 weeks, it was just downright tiring. Exhausting, trying to sift through guidance and what do we do for the base, what do we do for the people on the base, the mission, and trying to make heads or tails of things. But I think the other piece is it's been exciting to see the level of dedication that comes from people when they're going through a crucible. And there's been innovation that's come out of this. People have just shown up in a big way. So it's been really, really good on both ends of the spectrum.
What are you most proud of over the last 6 weeks?
Most proud of, well, first, Henry, I should say, first, thank you very much for having me on. This is a great opportunity for us to kind of share what's taking place at Sheppard Air Force Base. We consider ourselves to be a part of the community. The people here live, work, and play downtown here on the installation. So it's a porous community. So it's good for us to be able to talk about some of the things that are going on here. So thank you for that opportunity. I think one of the things I'm most proud of, as I kind of indicated just a moment ago, is about the fighting spirit of our folks who work here on the installation. We within Sheppard Air Force Base, we're part of Air Education and Training Command, which means that we can't stop. We did not have the opportunity to take a knee and say, hey, we're just going to hibernate and not do anything. Now, there has been some of that that's gone on, just the natural, the necessity of us to shelter. But the reality is we've continued to train. Our business is training airmen, whether or not that's, two wings out here, whether or not that's technical training or flying training. And everything in between. But for us to just continue to power through and figure it out and keep people safe while we're doing it, I've been really, really impressed and encouraged by the way people have done that. And in many cases, it's been at a difficult situation because they've been putting themselves in harm's way. We didn't know how bad this was going to hit for our local community or for Sheppard Air Force Base. So. One of the things that we've talked about quite a bit is for an active duty member, a lot of times you will deploy and you understand what goes on when you deploy. You're going into harm's way, your family is at home, and you kind of have a little bit of a separation between the two. But here, the situation is flipped. The enemy, the threat is right here with us. So and you still have to come and do your job, but then are you literally taking the threat home with you? And that was very harrowing for a lot of people early on. And so it's just been really exciting to see how people have powered through just to make this happen, this mission happen for us.
Tell me about what's changed on base over the last 2 months.
Ooh, where do I start? So first, I'd say that, our Secretary of Defense gave us 3 priorities right up front. He said we need to take care of people, 1. We need to make sure that we preserve our ability to do our mission, 2, and then we need to stay tied to our local communities. Those were words directly from the SecDef as he put out to all commanders. And so as we've done that, there have been lots of things that we've put in place to take care of that mission number 1, taking care of people. One of the most visible for people who do have access to the installation has been gate screening. We had gate screeners out, asking people questions about, hey, have you traveled outside of the area? What's your physical capacity like? Do you have a fever or cough? And then if you do, then we need you to go to this particular location to get some medical attention. So that's been one. One of the other very distinct changes that's taken place is with our ability to restrict our movement. So we've got about 5,000 airmen in training on this installation at any given time. And they have not been off the installation for well over a month and a half. And that's a significant change. And for the permanent party members on the installation, they've been doing what we call a domicile to duty, and only for essential movement, going to get food and gas, medical attention, and those kinds of things. We have a lot of facilities that have been shut down. We've closed our gymnasiums and instead, fitness centers. And instead, in order to be able to keep our military readiness, physical fitness is still a requirement. So our mission support group, and they've just shown up in a huge way as well. They put out connexes, fitness connexes. So we took a lot of the equipment out of the fitness centers and put them out in open air, and with connexes with locks on them for certain times, so that people don't get hurt when they're trying to work out in the evening time. And then now people can go and work out underneath the sun. Now it'll be a different story here in June when it becomes 100 degrees. But the reality is we've taken a lot of ingenuity in things that we probably wouldn't have done before in order to be able to continue to do that. One of the creative measures that the Force Support Squadron, the folks who oversee our fitness centers for us, they came up with this idea. They said, hey, your treadmill misses you. So they allowed different units to check out a treadmill and put it in a room where they can control the population of people that are going to come in, keep that physical distancing, so that we can prevent the spread. So that's been another unique aspect of the past 6 weeks. We've also had a lot of teleworking. So there are a lot of people who work out here at Sheppard Air Force Base who have not been coming to work. We've had some who we've deemed essential to the mission, and they've had to come in every single day. And then some who have been teleworking, and then we've alternated shifts so that if we can maintain that capability. So if by chance shift A, if you will, were to get sick, then shift B would still be able to come in and pick up the slack, and we could keep the mission moving forward. So quite a few changes that have been going on.
That treadmill thing's pretty awesome. I got to tell you, we started talking about fattening the curve instead of flattening, because there's so many of us that are working from home mostly, and where my desk is set up, the kitchen's behind me like 5 feet back there.
Right.
And I'm in the middle of all the junk food that the kids are eating. So I started running again. I had to do something because it's a pretty sedentary lifestyle working at home,
Absolutely. In fact, you talk about, with the family and things, we decided that we were going to do a push-up challenge in our house. And so now everybody's got their own thing that they're doing. So I levied a challenge for my boys, and, they each have a number of push-ups that they're doing each day. And, so I figured at the end of COVID, if nothing else, they're going to be strong.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, our house has different challenges. Our youngest two, Elizabeth and Callie, the other day, they did a 24-hour blanket fort challenge. They see this stuff on YouTube, I guess, these challenges. And so they made a blanket fort in the playroom with the intent of staying in it for 24 hours. So I had to bring them food and water and random stuff. And then the next day they didn't make it. When it was lunchtime, they came out. So I think they made 18 hours. So I don't know if that's not going to help them get stronger. Maybe there's some survival skills in there. I don't know.
Bonding.
Yes, exactly. I just read, just not 30 minutes ago, the city of Wichita Falls just announced that they are opening up city facilities next week. City Hall, the CVB, the MLK Center, and several other public facilities.
Sure.
What's your take on when the base may open back up, when people can get on, when your people can get off and start going back to restaurants and shopping and that sort of thing?
That's a great question, and quite frankly, it's one that we get very frequently. As things have opened up around us, the question is coming: hey, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for us who are serving here on Sheppard Air Force Base, particularly the military and our civilian and contract members as well? It takes the entire team to make this work. So first thing, we're under a public health emergency, and it's very similar to the declaration that the county judge made for the city. And because it's a public health emergency for us, that has driven a health protection condition, or HPCON measures. And right now we're in HPCON Charlie. You can't be in the military without having a good acronym. So
all these acronyms.
Absolutely. So HPCON Charlie then drives certain things for us to do. But we also have some directives that have been given to us by the Department of Defense. Face coverings. We're mandated to use face coverings in public spaces. So for the military, what that will look like as we start to relax some of those restrictions. Right now, we have not released many restrictions at all. We're still domiciled to duty. We can go to restaurants and do takeout and carry out, but dining in is something that we're not experiencing. We're not enjoying that experience right now. But we still do want to, and everybody wants to go and still nourishment is important. We want to support local businesses. So dine out and carry out is still possible. As we go into our phased approach, as we go to open up here on the base and to release us to do other things, there will be other areas, other retail areas that we'll step into. We're just not there right now. And it's a tough message, but it's one that we embrace. We were talking a little earlier about, what it takes to be in the military, and it's not always easy. And it doesn't mean that the same type of experiences, our freedoms that I'll call it, that other people may be able to experience right now we are able to experience on the installation. And the reason why is because the mission that we have requires that we continue to do it. And we're in such close quarters on the installation that if we get a cluster on the installation, it's tough to prevent it from spreading fast. So we've got to take some extraordinary measures, make sure that some of the new freedoms that take place downtown stick. And I know that the city leadership, we stay in close contact, as the mayor has had and the county judge have had the various venues to plug into. We've been right there. Leadership from Shepherd Air Force Base has been right there, talking, inputting, making sure that we're in lockstep with everything that's going on. We just have to take some extra precautions right now, because going back to what I mentioned before, the SecDef has asked us to make sure that we preserve that mission. So Some of these things won't go on. And I think the other important piece for us to know, both for those who work on Shepherd as well as off, if we're off base and in a public space, we're still going to be wearing our face coverings. And the unfortunate part is that some people do not understand why we do that. And, I'll just put this out publicly. I know that some of our military members have actually been asked, almost in a confrontational kind of way, about why they're wearing face coverings. And that makes it a little bit difficult. But for those of us who do work out here, it's a requirement. It's a requirement if you're going out in public spaces to put that face cloth covering on, cloth face covering on.
It's pretty interesting how the simple idea of wearing a mask has become political. We're in the middle of probably the biggest debate that we'll have in our lifetime, which is protecting people's health versus getting the economy back up and running again. And it's all become political. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. For those of you who just joined us, you're watching The Pulse, brought to you by Helen Farabee Centers. I'm Henry Florson with the Chamber of Commerce. My guest today is Installation Commander from Shepherd Air Force Base, Colonel Kenyon Bell. I want to give everybody a heads up. If you're watching live on Texoma's homepage, Facebook page, last couple of weeks we've had issues with Facebook kicking the feed off in the middle of the show. If that happens, you can join us on the Chamber's Facebook page, or just wait and Texoma's homepage will restart the feed. Colonel, tell me how your family's doing through all this.
The family is adjusted, just like everybody else who has school-age children. We've gone down through that dynamic of hey, what does school look like now? And kids wanting to stay up late, so we've had to adjust to that new norm. For a long period of time, it's always been a free-for-all out in the streets with kids playing up and down the neighborhood, and we've had to, kind of keep that physical distancing.
Adjusted.
so that we can continue to do what the CDC guidelines tell us to do. But overall, as I mentioned before, we've tried to figure out what we want to look like on the other end. This concept of mental modeling. It's tough to understand this thing called COVID-19 because it just hasn't happened before. But as we start to think about what we want to look like on the other end, then we do some mental challenges for ourselves. I mentioned the challenge that I spoke about with my boys. With my daughter, we're kind of working into this routine of trying to learn Spanish. And so that's something that we were trying to keep ourselves engaged with. But it has been a bonding experience as well. When you're now not sending your kids off to school, and although I've been coming to work pretty consistently, my wife's been learning a lot about the kids, and it's fun to sit down and talk about some of their natural tendencies and the things that you just didn't realize because you don't spend that much time together. But I'm very proud of the way that they have endured and adjusted as well.
Got a question from Texoma's homepage. Ralph Taylor asked if the base is doing a 4th of July celebration this year.
Yeah, so we're talking through that right now. As it goes, we normally kind of alternate. We have the air show, which we did in 2019. And then on the following year, we'll do a Freedom Fest. And so we're talking through exactly what that might look like. Now, that is in concert with the local community. So it won't be an independent decision that we make. It'll be one that we work through and talk through a little bit. But we're having those conversations. So, Ralph, still to be determined right now. But with the physical distancing that is required, it will likely not look like it has in the past. It'll be a little bit different, but we certainly want to celebrate our independence.
Let's talk about the base as a whole right now. Most citizens that don't have to interact with personnel from the base on a regular basis, they know about the jets overhead. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much it. But there's so much more that goes on out there. Can you give a brief summary of the different types of training that happen at Sheppard Air Force Base and how the wings are separated?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So 2 specific wings out here at Sheppard. As you just mentioned, the flying mission with Egypt, the 80th Flying Training Wing. Then we have the 82nd Training Wing. And the easiest way to distinguish that is 80th Flying Training Wing does just that. They fly and they train new pilots. And it's not just for the U.S., but it's for our NATO partners, 14 different partner nations. And then on the technical training side, it's the support personnel, it's logistics functions. So when you think about the number of technical trainees that graduate from basic military training down at Lackland and then transition through, we have the lion's share of that training takes place right here at Sheppard Air Force Base. So we are pushing through, over 60,000 graduates through our pipelines, and that's not just the people here at Sheppard, but we have people who train folks out in the broader detachments across the world. But it is our civil engineering functions, vertical construction, explosive ordnance and disposal, EOD, aircraft maintenance functions, telecommunications, POL or petroleum, oil and lubricants, our fuels technicians. So it runs the gamut. We have like 900 courses that we teach within the 82nd Training Wing. So that's a broad scope view of some of the training that takes place here. And folks can spend anywhere from about 3 to 4 weeks all the way up to 7 to 9 months in our pipeline that's here. And then I don't think I mentioned pest management. So it's anywhere from actual weapons loading all the way to pest management. But then there are a couple of other entities that are out here on the installation. We perform professional military education. So we've got a non-commissioned officer academy, or NCOA. And that NCOA that's here underneath the direction of the Barnes Center out in Alabama, they do training at that mid-tier level. So at the technical sergeant level, they come in from all over the nation, and they come here, and they have had some of the largest classes. That is a growing industry here, and that makes a difference for the downtown community. That's more people who are coming here they're not just staying on Shepherd Air Force Base, they're going off base to do shopping and entertainment and those types of things. And that's going to grow. Once we get back to whatever the new norm looks like, those 300 plus folks will continue to come here on a 6-week basis. And that's more of a population. So broad mission sets that are here, not just the flying training and the ground training and support training, but professional military education along with our international partners.
And when you talk about getting downtown, I want to make it clear that means the city as a whole. You're not just talking about our historic district, right?
That's right. That's right. Downtown. That's a great point. Frequently, we'll use that term anytime you're leaving the base. Oh yeah, I'm going downtown. But it's all the surrounding communities. It's not just the historic district down where the smallest skyscraper is located.
One of the parts of the base that provides so much culture to the entire area is the Euro-NATO Flying Training Partnership. And so a lot of our citizens are aware that we've got, 14 or 15 different countries represented at Shepherd that send instructors, that send pilot students. How has their presence changed what you've had to do over the last 2 months to keep your people safe?
So as a Department of Defense, we've made some decisions about our international training, and for the 80th Flying Training Wing, which is again a completely different wing set, and so I don't want to step too far into their spot, but we did stop international travel for a while with our international students that were coming in. So we had to hit pause on that because that was a federal mandate to do that. Now the training for the folks who continued in the pipeline, that continued. And it's important also to note that it's both wings actually have an international presence. So that affected both of our populations of students that were coming through. We had to hit pause. We continued with the folks that were in the pipeline. And then as restrictions released a little bit, then now we're able to start bringing folks in as the federal government determined that, okay, it's now time to start bringing folks back. And we're slowly doing that. It has not, all of the training has not completely commenced back up yet, but we'll slowly do that. So that has an impact. It's just like any other movement that you hit pause on. It will have an impact. Exactly what that impact is going to be is still to be determined.
Sure, thank you. On the Chamber's Facebook page, Jan Seville asked, are there needs on base, especially for the trainees, that the community can help with?
Oh, that's a great question. So we have the local community has been extremely helpful. And I'll tell you one specific area, I talked about the face coverings. And while we had the ability to make some on base, both in the training pipeline through some folks who have that skill set, and then our spouses here on base. So Henry, you'll enjoy this. They came up with a moniker, and it was Operation Threadmaster. And so our spouses got together and they started making face masks and producing them for family members on base and for other people as well. And I think actually some of them may have gone outside the gate as well. But as far as the community involvement, some community members also volunteered to make some of those cloth face coverings for us. And they put them in drop boxes. They somehow got them to us, and it was just a tremendous help. Right now, we are fairly self-sufficient, but through our public affairs team and our community outreach, there may be some other opportunities that we can certainly make available to folks. So I saw it was, you said Jan Seville, we can certainly reach out and see if there are other opportunities that we might be able to link up with.
Gotcha. And if anybody wants to follow up on any of these questions after the show, send one of the Chamber staff members or the Chamber's Facebook page a message and we'll help you out. Megan Garcia wants to know, she says, any news on when we might be able to visit our trainees?
That's a great question, Megan. I tell you, and I want to highlight the fact that, as I mentioned before, our trainees on the installation, they have not seen their parents, their family members for over 8 weeks. Each week we get a new group of folks that come in from basic military training down in San Antonio. And we used to bus them in from down in San Antonio. We've changed that process to offer a more protected movement. And so they've been flying in. So And each week, the command chief, Chief Mosley, and I will have an opportunity to welcome them to the base, to welcome them to the United States Air Force. And we had to hit pause on that as well because those mass gatherings just didn't work. So we worked with our public health team, and today I'll tell you we had an opportunity to do a modified briefing with them, and they are excited. But the one question that they continue to ask is, "Hey, when will I be able to see my family? Because I haven't been able to see them for a while." The unfortunate piece to that is that I don't have a tangible answer just yet. Once we start to release some of the restrictions on their movement, then we'll be able to invite some of those family members to come in onto the installation. But as it stands right now, we don't have that ability as it currently stands.
You're watching The Pulse live stream on Facebook and YouTube, and also rebroadcast on Fox 18. In just a few minutes, we'll wrap up the show for the TV broadcast, but for our live stream audience, stick around and we'll be right back.
Henry.
Colonel, you and I first met at Cracker Barrel. General Ron Jolly, who was the base commander here, he did a handoff. He wanted to make a connection between the two of us before you got here. And so that was a couple of months before you actually came in and started your service here. Have you talked to General Jolly lately?
Oh, yes. General Jolly and I stay in touch. You know, it's a small community of folks. And so for various reasons, we have need to be in similar phone calls and so forth. He's moved on to his new assignment, and they're doing well there. So yes, we have stayed in touch.
Speaking of General, at some point, I can't remember how many months back it was, but you were nominated for the post of General, correct?
That's correct.
How does that work? Because at this point, you're still Colonel Bell, but this is coming. How does that process work?
So there's a confirmation process that takes place following the nomination, and then after that confirmation process has taken place now. So it's been confirmed now, so that's a good thing. And then now it's the wait to see if when the appropriate time is to be approved to wear the rank. But I'll tell you though, Henry, you know, that is wonderful. It's wonderful, but more importantly, I think that the ability to be here at this time in this capacity, whether or not a colonel or nominated or confirmed for the next rank, the ability to be here and lead folks through this is really what is pretty awesome. Last week, we had a couple of really big events that took place that reminded us that life still does go on. If you don't mind, I just want to share that. You know, last week was National Daycare Provider, Child Care Provider Appreciation Day. And so on Friday, we had a chance to go over to our Child Development Center because those folks continue to come to work just like the folks who were doing the training. They're essential. And they showed up every single day making sure that happened. And so a salute to them. And then also on Friday, it was Military Spouse Appreciation Day. And our military spouses, our families in general, they endure so much through military deployments. And then now this, and we have a lot of folks who are still deployed from Shepherd Air Force Base. And as a service, as a Department of Defense, we have hit pause officially on moving people in and out of theater. And because of that, we have to stay closely connected to them. So just a big shout out to our daycare providers and our military spouses.
Sure. And I want to get back to our spouses in just a minute. Thank you for watching this TV broadcast of The Pulse, brought to you by Helen Farabee Centers. For the live stream crowd, stick around. We'll be right back. And to everybody watching on Fox, you can visit the Chamber's Facebook page to watch this show in its entirety. So thanks again to Texoma's Fox 18 for airing The Pulse, and to Colonel Bell for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
And we're back. So let's talk about military spouses in a little bit more detail, because you know the Chamber's been working really hard with the community over the past couple of years to develop programs aimed at getting military spouses better connected to the community, better connected to the workplace. A lot of spouses get ignored when they move to a new community because the businesses say, you're only going to be here couple of years. I don't want to really take that risk. And we noticed a while back that I went and asked some people in the business community, well, what's the average tenure of the employees that you've got right now? Mm-hmm. And they'd say, well, 1 or 2 years. And so we've got this educated workforce sitting here on base that has been neglected, and that's not unique to Wichita Falls. Sure. So we had a series of programs. We had started some community tours. We've been doing a lot to help military spouses get hired. What can we be doing more right now while we can't actually engage with them in person?
Well, first, I want to mention, you have, as you just talked about, a tremendous program that has been received very well and is certainly very much appreciated. And if I can, members who have been on your staff, Adrene White and Taylor Davis, those are names that are now very common to me because of their passion for what they've been doing. It's been really helpful. As far as what can be done and continue to be done, our spouses want to be involved. They pick up every single move. It's like a new game for the active duty member in active duty cases, and for civilian employees who end up moving. Those folks go to work, and then they have a network of people that they immediately plug into. But on the flip side, our spouses end up having to kind of start from scratch. So those opportunities for them to be able to use their craft when they get to a new location, those are very beneficial. Education opportunities are extremely helpful. To be able to, the government overall has recognized that licensing is going to transfer. We'll be able to transfer from state to state, so that a teacher who is credentialed in one state doesn't have to start all over at the bottom of the totem pole and then continue to move up. But now they're able to move from one location to the next and keep all of their credentialing so that they don't lose ground. So those types of activities and efforts are really helpful for our military spouses to stay engaged.
Why'd you join the Air Force?
That's a unique story. So I went to the Air Force Academy, and initially I went to the Air Force Academy because it was about as far away from home as I could possibly get. Not that I didn't love my parents. I grew up in a great household, and they were then and continue to be very supportive of everything I did. But the Academy sent me an opportunity to come and play basketball. And I accepted that opportunity, thinking that I was only going to stay for a short period of time, and then I would leave and go play basketball at some big Division I school or something like that. Well, as I frequently told people, my basketball skills were better in my head than they were on the court, so that didn't pan out. But shortly after getting there, I found a passion in leadership, found something that I really enjoyed doing. And then move on to my first duty station. Fell in love with this concept of being able to support a flying mission. I'm an aircraft maintainer by trade. That's what I've been doing for 25 years, in addition to leadership overall. And then now, you couldn't pry me away from this. My family still enjoys it. We enjoy the ability to be able to make a difference for people. And Henry, I actually got my start right here at Sheppard Air Force Base. July of 1995, I spent my first 3 months in the Air Force training right here at Sheppard before I went to my first duty station. So this has been a great opportunity to come back and give back to a community, being the logistics community that I've been a part of for so long.
You brought up basketball. Let's talk about that for a second, because I know you experienced some heartbreak because of COVID-19. You were going to the Final Four.
Yeah, so I thought we agreed we were not going to bring that up, but
I don't care.
Yeah, so COVID-19 came up front and center right into my household. I've been talking about going to a Final Four for a long time, and my siblings and my father were all going to go to the Final Four. This year it was going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. For those who weren't tracking, I certainly was, because I had my tickets and airplane tickets and all of that. And then I remember I was actually right here in this office when the initial text came in. It was a pop-up alert. We were seeing that this was the response to COVID-19 was fast and furious. And then when I found out that the NCAA had canceled the Final Four, being in the office was probably not the best place for that news to come. So it changed things. I'm still a fan of basketball now. Now I just watch it. There've been a lot of, in fact, right now, The Last Dance is on. So that's one way that just been trying to stay connected with sports.
What do your kids think about your job?
The kids, they've been very resilient through the job. We had the opportunity to be stationed at right up the road in Oklahoma at Tinker Air Force Base, doing a similar position in installation command. So it's been something they've been used to. I think one of the things as they have kind of grown through this is now 3 or 4 years now of them being in this position where I'm a wing commander and at an installation, and being in wing command, my picture is up in a lot of different places, and it took them for a while. Hey, Dad, why's your picture up all over the place? And so we have those conversations about what it means to be in command, what it means to serve, because quite frankly, we like to talk about, my wife and I both. We met in the service. She started active duty as well. And we talk about how as a family we serve, because it's not just me who wears the uniform every single day that's serving. It is a family when we end up having the moving truck come and move us to the next location. We're doing this as a family. And so therefore we talk about the types of things we do as a family and why we do what we do, why sometimes there are late nights. And as we talked about at the beginning of this discussion, for COVID-19, the response was aggressive, and that meant that there were many days that the day long, the nights were short, and they had to endure that as well. So they do understand quite a bit, and they're very resilient from that standpoint. Very proud of them.
Good, you should be. You served as a panelist for one of our boss panel discussions a few months back, and your wife came along with a group of military spouses, and you told the group that you told the whole audience that your wife was the MVP and that your family had a pretty successful schedule in place to help the kids get everywhere they needed to be and you get everywhere you needed to be. How has that dynamic changed at all during the last couple of months?
Yeah, so my wife, Lori does a great job of making sure that we're engaged. We've got the activities moving forward. We do it together. It's a joy to be able to do it together. But at the same time, not having kids who are leaving the house for school, but instead they're logging in to Google Meets and all those types of events. And I should right now give a huge plug. On base, we've got Shepherd Elementary School, which is part of the Wichita Falls ISD. And Miss Waddell and the teachers there at Shepherd Elementary have just been amazing. And of course, many of our students here on base also go, and they're part of Burke Burnett ISD. And both those school districts and around the area have been so supportive of what's been taking place. But internal to the house, we've had to reach a new norm of how much studying they're going to do, because you can only stay engaged so long. And then, of course, being that they're young kids, they want to do the TV and the gaming. So, limits and controls on those are very helpful. And then getting outside is really important. So we try to do a good balance of all of that to make sure that we're staying connected. Yeah,
we've got the same dynamic. So we've got 5 kids at the house, and I guess was it last night or 2 nights ago? I forget. Kimberly had a video chat with a group of ladies, a group that she's in, and the internet was being iffy. And so she asked if I could help get everybody else off the internet. And about 2 minutes later, the kids are all walking in the living room like that. I don't know what to do now. So then we had to sit. We have DirecTV at home, and we sat there and had a conversation about how Netflix and Amazon Prime are using the Wi-Fi, and that's how the internet comes in for your iPad. But then if that's not working, DirecTV, it's a satellite dish, it's pulling the signal from somewhere else. It actually turned into an educational opportunity, but it was funny watching those kids. They're in their routine, and they've all got their iPads, and when it doesn't work, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, they can be lost, and that's that's the location and the thing that we don't want them to be in, where they're walking around lost. So, creative projects, and there's a lot out there on the internet now about, hey, here are the things that you can do to be creative about what's taking place. So all kinds of activities that we're trying to get out and be active. I ended up having to fix a couple of bike tires so that we can go on some family bike rides. There is no lack. In fact, I'll tell on myself. About a weekend ago, when it was really, really hot, I had a great idea. Hey, I'm gonna fix up everybody's bikes. And so once we got them all fixed, we went on a bike ride here on the installation, and ended up being about 7.5 miles. The unfortunate part, we didn't talk about it until we got back home. It was in the high 90s. So we took frequent breaks. We did it safely, pulled over, had the water and all that kind of stuff. But they slept well that night. There was no problem with getting to bed that night.
How old are you kids?
13, 11, and 9. So they are still in that very, very, very the stage where they still think dad is cool at times. But 13-year-old, she's starting to look at me kind of like, hey, where'd that come from? But it's a good dynamic in the house.
Yeah, I got a house full of that.
Yeah.
So for those of you that just joined us, you're watching The Pulse, sponsored by Helen Farabee Centers. I'm Henry Florson with the Chamber of Commerce. My guest today is Installation Commander of Shepherd Air Force Base, Colonel Kenyon Bell. For those of you watching live, don't forget, you can post your questions and we'll try to get to them. In the meantime, we've got hard-hitting questions like this. What was your favorite subject in school?
Sure, that came in online, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Favorite subject. I enjoyed math. I enjoyed the math aspect of things, and since then I've kind of been more of a student of the human experience. I tend to gravitate towards that when I pick up something for reading. Really a student of leadership and leadership lessons, how you can coalesce a team together and try to make everything work while you move everybody in the same direction. But I'd say it was probably math growing up. So while it might be math, it certainly has not been public health. And I do want to give a quick shout out to our public health team. The folks downtown have been wonderful. And we've got a public health team here on the installation that has really shown up in a big way. Our medical group team, public health around the globe, they've been thrust into the front lines, and it's been no different here. We've done a couple of things. I think you've seen it online. We've interviewed our public health officer here locally, making sure that we all get the words directly from those folks who they study this all the time. And then now it's their time to shine and help us walk through this. So while that was not my subject necessarily, although I was a biology major, the public health aspect of it was not my specific expertise. So huge shout out to that team.
Yeah. Got a couple questions. One from Texomashomepage. Sherry Ward asks, have you seen the change in the role of military leadership over your career?
The role in military leadership.
How has it changed?
How has it changed? Well, I think that the way we interact with folks that we've been entrusted to lead. So as I've come through the ranks, I've taken the things that I've enjoyed in my leaders and taken those to heart. And then you should keep two lists, is the way I kind of see it. You keep the list of things that you like, those things that people have done, and things that you don't like, and then you scratch them off and try your best not to. I think one of the ways that I've seen that people have leaders have transitioned throughout the course of my career is being able to connect the dots for us, being able to explain a little bit of the why behind it as the opportunity presents. Being in the military, sometimes you don't get to ask that question why. It's a go do and you must do. But when you have some steady state opportunity, being able to give people broad guidance and watch people show up with their ingenuity and how they can solve some tough problems. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of it, watching people communicate about the why and why what we do at the tactical and operational level connects directly to the strategy at the top.
We've got some more questions coming in. Grayson Wadzinski asks, what does a commander do in their spare time?
Well, Grayson, when spare time does present itself, I'll speak for myself. I enjoy family time. I am fueled by being with my family. When I'm not doing that, I enjoy going out and doing my exercise. I keep a couple of pair of running shoes and try to cycle them through. I love putting miles on the shoes, have an opportunity to put in a podcast, put in my favorite tunes, and go on a long run, get a workout in. And then I also enjoy reading. So some of the things that are some of my favorites, but I'd say topping that list is spending time with my family.
Glenn Rabideau has asked, when will veterans be allowed access to base again?
Glenn, that's another excellent question. So I'll be a little broader with that for the audience. So as we had to restrict some of the access to base in order to limit some of the exposure, it was necessary for us to restrict some of those categories of people who previously had access to the base. Right now, we are in official business only, so folks that just want to come and take a trip through the base, that's not what we're authorizing right now. So the veterans or VIC card holders, veteran identification card holders, have been restricted from the base for a period of time since the declaration of the public health emergency. So that will continue for a period of time. Glenn, I do see that will likely change, but we're going to make that based on some of the data that continues to present itself as far as how things continue to progress with the virus.
You're in a position of great responsibility, and it's a very unique position on a base where leadership constantly comes in and out. When something like this happens, who do you turn to for advice? Do you have a mentor?
Yeah, Henry, that's a wonderful question. It would be foolish of me to believe that all the great answers would come from these four walls. I am in constant contact with fellow commanders as an installation commander, making decisions for a broad population. I love bouncing ideas off of other installation commanders. What's happening at your installation? How are you doing this? And then sometimes you get, in fact, tomorrow I'll have a telecon with a couple of installation commanders who are a part of the same regional grouping, if you will. And we're going to talk through how we are tackling the different problems. And the beauty is that we're all in different communities. Some of us are in other parts of this state, others are in other states altogether. And then some of the connections that you make across the Air Force, you're able to reach out and ask folks. I also get lots of input from people who are on the base. Sometimes it's very helpful input. Sometimes these are very specific pieces of input. But then the leaders who I get to work with, my colleagues here on the installation, we talk constantly about how we attack these very difficult problems so that we're making the right call. And we don't get it right all the time. We made some decisions early on about hours of installation hours for various access, and then we had to go and adjust. It wasn't the right decision at the time, but as you're moving fast at the speed of COVID, as we call it sometimes, you have to make those decisions, and then you have to be willing to adjust. I think that a lot of it just boils back to just being humble and realizing that you're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but you got to move forward so that you can keep the safety and health and welfare of everybody in the forefront, and I think we'll all work out.
Sure. What do you and your family like the most about Wichita Falls?
This community has been amazing. We've had the ability to be able to travel around quite a bit and be a part of a lot of communities, and just like in many of the other communities that we've had a chance to be in, it's been open arms. You talked about earlier about our initial meeting over breakfast, and and at that time, I'm gonna be really transparent with you. At the time, we were on leave, and I remember when General Jolly said, "Hey, President CEO of the Chamber wants to meet," and I said, "Tell him I'm on leave. tell him we got some family things going on." But that I certainly appreciated that. But that is indicative. Your initial reach out is indicative of the way it has been here at Shepherd and in this local community. It's just been nothing but, "Hey, have you seen this? Do you know about this opportunity? And that's been across the board. The reach out that happens for the members here at Shepherd Air Force Base, we've got community leaders, we've got organizations that do so much, so many Veterans Day events, military appreciation events that we just really appreciate. And when you're moving around like we do, being able to plug into a community that really appreciates the fact that you might not be from this area, but you now are a part of us. So I think that as I'll call it, Southern hospitality, and my wife and I are both from South Carolina, that Southern hospitality has just been huge for us.
Yeah, and just so you know, that was General Jolly pushing. He had been telling me about you. He said, "Listen, I really want to make the connection," because he and I connected in a pretty strong way, and he was real happy with the programs we were developing, and he wanted to make the connection. And so, was that spring break for you when you were here?
It was, and of course, Henry, the relationship that we've established, I wouldn't be telling you that if of course it didn't grow into something that's very beneficial. So yeah, there was no ill will at all. Certainly appreciated the ability to make that connection early on. And it was spring break. We were spending just a couple of days here, and we were headed off to a cabin somewhere in the woods, someplace to just have a little bit of downtime. But it was a great opportunity to be able to connect.
Hey, you had to eat breakfast somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
What's been the most challenging thing for you during the last couple of months?
The last couple of months, for certain, has been the communication aspect. There has been so much information that flows out, and being able to accept that information and then turn it and give it back to our population here on base in a way that it's digestible. Because the important part that everybody wants to know is some amount of stability. People long for that. I think that was probably the thing that was most difficult for us overall. I'm a big believer in mental modeling, and when something doesn't meet the model that you have in your head, then you're left with uncertainty. And trying to decrease some of that uncertainty for folks. In communicating it out, we try our very best to share as much information as we can on our webpage. We do a weekly broadcast where we try to answer questions that people have sent in. But the communication aspect has probably been the toughest challenge. Interestingly, early on, it was a lot of our base population was curious as to why some things didn't shut down fast enough. And then now, with the spring fever coming on, if you will, summer fever, things starting to open up, the questions now are just the opposite. Hey, how fast can we get back to normal? And I think one of the things that we just have to remember is that there really will not be the way it was in the past. It's going to be a new normal, and things will look a lot different than what we're used to. But in some ways, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. There are lots of things that I'm glad we have discovered, and that we're going to move forward with, and not do some things, but change and increase in doing some others.
This next question, David Toogood posted the question. I should be scared. I don't know what this means. He says, if an academy graduate tells you fast, neat, average,
friendly, good, good. Response? My response would quickly be friendly, good, good. Yeah, so Dave Toogood, and of course with WSC and they support the base in such a big way. We couldn't do our mission out here without his team. He is an academy graduate. The form O-96 is what he's referencing. There's a great book that's out that kind of speaks to that about Lance P. Sajan, who was a POW back in the Vietnam War, and the story goes that when he was, and this has happened actually a couple of times, for those who were academy graduates, there's an authentication that has to take place anytime someone is trying to pick someone up behind the enemy lines. And using that form O-96, that call and response was something that they had used. That sent me back all the way to 1991. Thanks for that walk down memory lane.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dave. What do you think is the silver lining in all of this for you and Shepherd Air Force Base?
Yeah, so we have discovered new and ingenious ways of accomplishing our mission. And kind of alluded to this just a moment ago, some things that we've put in place now that I don't think we'll go back to the old way of doing business. And some of these things are no different whether or not you work inside the base at Shepherd or you work in any of the downtown communities, such as video teleconferencing. Just yesterday, we do a process where we have an enlisted force development panel, and that's where we talk about our folks that are coming up for promotion. And we do a board with all of those members who commanders believe that they have earned the right to get an extra notch up, if you will, on their promotion recommendation. And so we rack and stack records. Normally we sit around in a room and we're able to have collaboration that way. Well, yesterday we had about 10 commanders on a video teleconferencing call through one of our local networks, and everybody was up on the screen and we were able to communicate that way. And now we have other means of sitting at our desk, pop up the computer, pop up the laptop with a video and audio, and to be able to have those communications. 70% of communication is nonverbal. So it's much better than picking up the phone and wondering what someone is thinking or what their facial expressions are on the other end. So that's one area. We've also increased our ability to do distance learning. And distance learning is really important when you want to give someone something that they can take away and have as something, a reference material for the future. So being that we're in the training environment, those types of technology changes and that type of information is going to be vital to us.
We've got a question from Texoma's homepage. Sandy Williams Odell has asked, do you have a favorite leadership quote, speaker, or book you would recommend?
Oh, yes. So, there's no amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. That's one quote that has always stuck with me. I'm a big fan of being a servant leader. I'd say a book that I recently read and it still sticks with me. I've been kind of reviewing that. In fact, I was reviewing it a little bit this morning. Is a book by John Maxwell. And John Maxwell in this particular book is great leaders ask good questions. And it's just about making sure that you have to be humble if you're going to ask questions. So he comes always from a position of humility. So I think that's a great book for any leader, any person who might be in leadership, who wants to do a little bit of self-improvement. But yeah, I'm an avid reader, so I appreciate trying to improve myself in any way. Did you say that was Sandy?
Sandy, yes.
So I would love to be able to ask Sandy, put in the quote in the chat room there. Give me, please, a book that you would recommend, because that's the way we get better, right? We have to share.
All right, Sandy. The Colonel has asked you. We just got a couple minutes left. Colonel, if someone came up to you today and said they were considering joining the military, what advice would you give them?
I would first ask them to consider their why they want to join. When as I mentioned before, we get about 250 new basic military training folks that arrive here at Shepherd Air Force Base all the time. And one of the very first questions that we ask them is, what was your why? Because when times get tough, and they will, you want to have something to lean back on. Now, that why may not always persist. I told you why I joined, right? And that won't stick and stay. At some point, it transitions to a commitment. And so after you get past your why, if it is truly within you, then you'll get committed to this service. But do your homework. Happy to have you. Glad that you would make that choice to do so. But truly think about your why. This is an all-volunteer force, and we want people who are dedicated to serving into something that's bigger than themselves.
As we wrap up this show, Colonel, is there anything you'd like to share with the audience?
Absolutely. We're going through some turbulent times right now, and for those who might be outside the fence, please understand that just because you may not see your favorite person who works on Shepherd Air Force Base out and about right now, it's not because they don't want to. It's because we've got some some additional restrictions to make sure that we limit the exposure and can accomplish our mission. For those that are inside of Shepherd Air Force Base or members who work out here, lots of changes continue to take place. Our stop movement, which Henry, we didn't talk about a whole lot, but we're still under a stop movement that goes through the end of June. And that has a significant impact on people because they're people with assignments who are waiting to move to another location. But what I would encourage people to do is just to stay in touch with their leadership. If you've got hardships, I want you to stay in touch with them because they will have the latest information. But most important thing is just take care of each other. We're all going through this together. You heard we've all got families and leadership who are having the same type of challenges. So stick together. In the end, we do win. It's just that we have to stick together and remember until that manifests itself, we just got to continue to stay strong and fight through.
In the end, we will win. I like it. So as we close out, I do have an answer from Sandy Williams Odell. It's a book by Mark Sanborn called You Don't Have to Have a Title to Be a Leader.
I like that.
Well, folks, that's it for today's edition of The Pulse. Thanks to Colonel Kenyon Bell and to our sponsor, Helen Farabee Centers. This show can be found on the Chamber's Facebook page and on KJTL, Texoma's Fox 18 this Sunday morning. And join me next Wednesday with my guest, Phyllis Cowling, CEO of United Regional Healthcare System. I'll see you then.